Yes, welcome back to the Magic Sponge Podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Brien. I'm the guy behind NRL Physio and all the content you see on socials. James, I'm a bit sad to be on the podcast tonight. We both made our way along to battle of probably the two best teams in the competition in the Broncos and the Finns. The mighty Dolphins, were favoured to get up, and they just got pipped at the post. Mate, you must have been pretty happy. It was look, at the end of the day, I think it was a bit closer than I expected, to be honest. I went to my first ever night game with my daughter, which was pretty cool. She enjoyed the drums at halftime. That was, I think, her highlight. I'm sure yours was a bit different, though.
No, the drums were good. They were a good G up. The person I was sitting with was like, "What the hell are we watching?" So I'm glad someone actually enjoyed the halftime entertainment, Brian. That was good to hear. I guess the context of that is I was actually camping up on the Sunshine Coast for that whole week of rain. So for people not aware, it's been raining a lot up on, Sunshine Coast, especially, but Queensland, Southeast Queensland more often. And that was been a pretty long week. Enjoyable mostly, but by the time I got to Brisbane, I had an absolute skinful under my belt by the time that game rolled around for just coping purposes, and it was enjoyable. It was the footy on the Friday night. It was a pretty good game. Like, I think the Finns fought well. The Broncos, just did what they needed to. Nothing super flashy, but the one is Shibasaki, Brian. Like,
Oh, mate.
where did this season come from? Like, he's looking like the second coming of Greg Inglis. He's going to wear maroon, honestly, the way it's going. It's a great story. One of the great stories in footy at the moment, I think.
Yeah, mate. One of the all-time calls, I think, from the boys over at SC Ballers. I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something like that. I was listening to the pod, and one of the fellas, I think it was Tubes, like said, "Yeah, Gemmet Shibasaki, like a young GI," and everyone just got like, how ridiculous. And now we're all on board, right? Like we're all on board. Like Gemmet, how good.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he's
But
carving.
he was so good. But the matchup I really enjoyed, and kind of every time they touched the ball, was Herbie and Katoni. Like for
Yeah, it was
Katoni,
unreal, hey?
like
Yeah.
Katoni to come back from an injury layoff and like up against Herbie, and Herbie didn't. I'm not saying Herbie had his best game by far, but certainly live. Like every time Herbie got the ball, or anytime Katoni got the ball, you kind of got on the edge of your seat. Like it was like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? And they both went at each other all night, and it was I thought that was sick. That was really really cool to watch. So, look, let's get into it. We're a bit late tonight. We've had a bit of an interesting day, but the big thing I want to get off before we get into all the injuries and stuff like that, I just want to say a warning on rumors, as always. Like, I think I've started this broadcast channel, which I think people are appreciating. They're liking kind of the more informal chat stuff that I hear sort of before it's official and that, which is really useful. But just beware of like rumors in DMs, because I don't know whether people have like taken this opportunity to like message me to try and like throw me off and like for me to put information out there. But I went through my DMs this afternoon. And so if you went off my DMs this week, Payne Haas, Adam Reynolds, Reece Walsh, Clint Gutherson, Alex Seyfarth, Dylan Brown, and Ruben Garrick were all out this week, not last week. I know Garrick was like supposed to be an out last week, but all these guys are in, and it was multiple people. Like, oh, I've heard that, Haas and Reynolds are both out, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I'm just like far out. So just chill out until you start hearing it from somewhere that's half reputable. And I wouldn't even say I'm half reputable, just someone of substance. But yeah, just watch out for the DMs and the Facebook group posts. I think a lot of people see posts on Facebook and think, and usually it's just some dude trying to like throw off their opposition or something like that. So just be wary. And also, I'm not going to fall for your bullshit in my DMs either, if that's what you're trying to do. So just to say that. But as always, guys, we're on YouTube, podcast, wherever you get all that stuff. You listen to us for injuries. Let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by Pain Pod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I mean, I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
We've got round 4 injuries to talk about, Brian, and we've got heaps to cover tonight. So we're going to have to do our best, get impersonations tonight, Brian, and do this in rapid time. HIAs to kick off. So 2 names here, Sifa Talakai and Scotty Sorensen. Not really a lot of fantasy relevance here for these two players, though, is there, Brian?
No, mate. Like, look, the usual. They're going to miss next week because they're in the protocols. But apart from that, yeah, I wouldn't say there's many implications here would be my thinking.
Yeah, nice one. Rabbitohs v the Panthers next. So a few names on the list here again for the Bunnies, who just honestly, we say it every week, can't take a trick. We've said that for like probably last 18 months, Brian, maybe 2 years. It's felt like forever for the old poor Bunnies fans amongst you out there. Campbell Graham was ruled out pre-game with a calf injury. He's looking at multiple weeks on the sideline there. Alex Johnston, now this one was a shoulder injury. I don't know if this was AC or scapular fracture, Brian. I don't think we've heard anything further. Brien To'o is reported as a hamstring injury. Kayal Iro with a leg injury. And Trent Toelau with a knee injury, which is kind of difficult to ascertain mechanism behind it, Brian, and severity of injury. But he sort of seemed to gut it out for the rest of the game from what I could gather. So maybe nothing too much to start with.
Yeah, well, I did see him limp up the tunnel at one point, but the mechanism was really strange. I couldn't really see anything obvious there by all accounts, and this is according to NRL.com, which is, as I said before, a reputable source. You would think they said he's been cleared of any major injury, so I would hope he's all good. Had a lot of questions about Jai Arrow with his leg. I think that was just like right at full time. He was like clutching his leg in a lot of pain. I went back and had a look at the mechanism. It just like he clashed knees. So it was more like a cork kind of bone bruise type mechanism. Very unlikely to miss time with something like that if that's all it is. But there was really no follow up there. So not much to go off with that. Brien To'o with the hamstring. Yeah, mate, like here's your exhibit A of hamstring injuries, right? Because I'm not sure if anyone remembers, but he missed round 1 in Vegas with the hamstring issue. He'd been dealing with a hamstring issue over the offseason. Now, whether this is the same hamstring or the other one, as we've spoken about many times on this show, that the hamstring injury risk for someone who has a previous hamstring injury exists across both hamstrings. So both hamstrings are then more likely to get injured, particularly in the first, it's like 3 to 4 months after that. But yeah, just overall that risk exists. So, I mean, the one thing that probably differs a little bit is that if he has strained, the hamstring, he has new damage on top of an old hamstring injury, that often adds to the recovery time. So, something that might be a minor strain and might usually be 2 weeks, it's 3 to 4 weeks. If it was usually 4 weeks, it's, 5 to 6 weeks. It just adds that little bit of time on. So, I mean, the hope here is that it's like a Tommy Turbo kind of, hamstring tightness coming from the lower back, but there's been no suggestion of that. It's all been hamstring, hamstring, hamstring. So if he's got a new strain there, yeah, like I'm thinking 3 to 4 weeks for Brien To'o at this stage, at best. But we'll just have to wait and see what Penrith come back with scan-wise. As I said, if it's that tightness, then you struck gold. But Alex Johnston with the shoulder, this is one of the more brutal mechanisms that I've seen. If you slow down that footage, his whole body weight goes through that elbow and just drives that upper arm bone straight back up into the shoulder socket. You can see his whole body lurch. Now, it's one of those mechanisms, and if you're in the broadcast channel, you would have seen me list a few different things. And that, when you land on the elbow and it drives it back up that significantly, you bring a lot of things onto the table. You can have AC joint issues. You can have shoulder joint, ball and socket issues as well. You can have a dislocation or a subluxation, or even a scapular fracture. So that arm bone can drive back up into the socket so harshly that it causes the shoulder blade, which is part of the shoulder joint, obviously, the ball and socket joint, to fracture. Now, that was by all accounts the main concern coming out of the game. So once again, NRL.com had that he had suffered a suspected shoulder blade fracture. But interestingly, and I know you're a big meme fan, James, as am I, and Alex Johnston posted on his Instagram story, and this is what you come to this show for, James, this hard-hitting injury analysis here, because he posted that a screenshot of, the Mike Tyson interview where he said the guy asked him, what did you hurt? And he said, I broke my back, spinal.
Yeah. Spinal.
Spinal.
One of the greats.
So he put a screenshot of that on his story and put if you know, you know. And I'm so either he's had I'm spinal, what, maybe it's a like, could you say it's a burner? Is it like, has he fractured like, a transverse process, or is it spine of the scapula, shoulder blade, that he's got, so there's a few
very
things
good.
here, mate. I'm waiting to see if that has any relevance whatsoever. I don't know whether I'm reading more into it than not. But yeah, unfortunately, we're sitting here on Sunday night since, what was it? They play Thursday night. We still have no information. That is just shit house, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I'll go on a rant about injury stuff in a second, about the coverage around injuries being horrible this year. But yeah, so look, like, I mean, everything's kind of still on the table for Alex Johnston. It could be something where he's only missing a week or two, all the way up to, missing 6 to 8 weeks with the scapular fracture. So, and that's just the mechanism. The mechanism is such a like a unique or a brutal one that, yeah, it can have significant, impacts, but it can also be like one of those like burnery kind of things as well. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. Unfortunately, we're here 4 days later and we still don't know, which is crazy. But yeah, that's where we're at.
All right. Campbell Graham as well, mate. Do we have a time frame on how long he's going to be missing with the calves?
Yeah, about a month,
strain?
I think. Yeah, well, that's what Wayne said, a month. So I'd be
Yeah,
thinking
3,
kind of
4.
3 to
Okay.
4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Just on the bunnies as well, mate. Like, I know there's a few fantasy relevant boys coming back soon. Like, Latrell's due round 5. I think Ewan Aiken's round 5 or 6. And Ty Munro, I think, on the casualty ward, he's scheduled for round 6 as well.
No,
Do you
that's
think
wrong.
like Ty Munro can't be round 6 return,
No,
can he?
he fractured
He's got to
his.
be miles further.
He fractured his. Didn't
Yeah.
he? He fractured his collarbone again. Like,
That
that's
was my
going to be.
understanding, yeah.
Yeah, mate. Well, I don't know. Unless there's been some news that I don't know about, I can't.
No.
It would have been 8 weeks from round 1. So like 6 to 8 weeks from round 1. So yeah, I just don't see him back. You're looking at round 8 to 11 kind of range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good update. Yeah, and I think for the draft, is Ewan Aiken's probably one you could stash either this week or next if he's around sort of 5
Yeah.
or 6 returners. Probably the only one for the Rabbitohs. They seem to have these boys in the injury reward. And we're looking at Fit Trell this week, Brien. How exciting is that? We're going to talk about him in Supercoach Corner. I reckon we'll give him a good run there for Fit Trell under Wayne's earnest guidance there. Roosters v Titans, a lot of names here. So Keano Kini has been reported as needing neck surgery. He was a rule out pre-game. Victor Radley's been reported as a minor cheekbone injury, I think was the terminology they used in one of the articles I read. Jaimin Jolliffe was a calf injury. Sam Verrills was a wrist or arm injury. Didn't see any mechanism here, Brien. No replays available. Any insights on Sam Verrills here, or are we just in the dark about what he's sort of injured?
Yeah, mate, I'm just going to go on a little rant here and just say that, and I say this with full recognition that many of you who listen to this show will probably turn around and say, but that's your job. And what I would say to you is, this isn't my job. I just do this for fun. It's still a hobby for me. I don't get paid to do the injury, coverage in that respect. But the injury updates this season have been the worst I have seen ever. I don't know whether teams are being more secretive, journos are just shitter at it, like whatever. Like, Fox Sports has stopped doing a casualty ward article altogether, so they don't do one. They used to do one every week, which was really useful for a lot of people. That's completely out the window. Like, Sam Verrills here went off with a wrist arm injury, like clutching at it. No mention. No one's really done anything about it. There's been no follow-up, nothing. So zero information. So, and the replay was not there, like non-existent. So, like, the only footage that I saw of it, like, there were bodies all tangled in. It was the wide shot. So, like, I can't really tell anything off that either. So yeah, I'd just say, unfortunately, and you go through my DMs, like I put out the call for questions at the start of today. And all of it is like, what happened to Sam Verrills? Max Plath, he went off with an issue. Like, I was at the game, so I went and skipped through the coverage. I didn't hear it spoken about anywhere, maybe on Channel 9, because I was like skipping through the Fox coverage. Maybe there was something on Channel 9 that I missed. But Max Plath, not much information. Kobe Hetherington, another one, not much information. So I know I'm going to the next game, but there was just so many guys. Jason Taumalolo, one for later. Yeah, I just feel like it's been really poor, the coverage this year. So all those people who listen to the show, PVL, Andrew Abdo, like those kind of guys, just make sure we get that injury coverage improving, because, I can't, my life is too busy. I can't be sitting there covering them till the cows come home. So yeah, not much on Sam Verrills. Jaimin Jolliffe, he's going to miss 1 or 2 weeks with a calf injury. Victor Radley with the cheekbone, mate. Like, I mean, you can put your tinfoil hat on here because I've got my tinfoil hat on. Like, this is his. So he failed a HIA or Category 1 HIA in week 1. So he suffered a concussion, missed week 2. Then he went off with a low tackle in round 3, and then he's gone off after a head clash, cheek clash in round 4. Apparently passed both of those HIAs. The Roosters have said like he doesn't have a concussion. But I think the big thing here, mate, and we say it time and time again, is that like this whole like whether he reaches the threshold for concussion or not, like whether he's actually suffered a concussion there. Either way, he's had 3 really heavy blows to the head in 4 weeks. Like it's not whether he's showing symptoms or not. And I know, unfortunately, that is kind of our gold standard at this point in time, this HIA test, which we've spoken about in the past. Once again, our problems with that being so subjective, not being the best guide on how the brain is functioning. But I'm sure he's getting other testing as well. But yeah, 3 big blows to the head in 4 weeks. I mean, it sounds like there's a minor cheekbone injury / fracture there. Like, what a godsend, to be honest, to give him a week or 2 off for his brain health as well. Like like you give the cheekbone a couple of weeks to heal, but just so he doesn't have more trauma to the brain. We spoke about him last week on the show when we had a question, does he need to retire? And the answer is, look, that's completely in his and his treating medical people's, in their hands, and they're the best placed people to do it. And people, I think the other thing is, like, I understand people, this can bring up some feelings, and they kind of often will have a crack at the Roosters potentially being like, and look, I'm not one to going to bat for teams, at any point in time. But like, I think the Roosters in the past, like, they've like walked Boyd Cordner through a retirement, Jake Friend through a retirement, like these kind of guys, like and you could argue, oh yeah, but they kept them out there for too long and bloody blah. But they've sat Luke Keary down for 6 weeks at a time.
Tedesco as well.
Yeah, like
yeah.
they
a lot of examples.
I was going to say they definitely tend to take care of their boys.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, heaps.
So I think they do seem to like be happy to rest guys when the signs of concussion are there. But I guess what I'm saying with this one is I'm kind of, really stoked for Radley that he's getting a couple of weeks off, not necessarily for concussion, but more just those repetitive blows to the head. That's going to build up trauma on the brain. Mate, I think the big one here, as much as Radley has got people talking this week, Keano Kini with the neck injury, kind of came out of nowhere, played 80 minutes in round 3. It's been the big talking point for this week. He was going to be out for the season. Now he's potentially out for 3 months. What's the story? How did he suffer it? All these kind of things. So we'll try and talk through it as best we can. So to get the nerd stuff out of the way, so it's been reported that he has a herniated disc. So that's where the disc, if you watch the video that I put on social, it's very accurate in terms of what he has. So the disc has bulged out the back towards his spinal cord. So his spinal cord is reportedly 14 millimeters in diameter, and a normal spinal cord diameter is about 17, 18 millimeters. So I think you said off air, James, very good point. Like, he's probably got a bit of a thinner spinal cord because he's a bit of a littler dude. So, 14 millimeters probably not on the, not abnormal. But effectively what they're saying is that 14 millimeters was compressed at least 10 millimeters of that space. So in other words, the disc has bulged out like a centimeter into his spinal cord, which, like to go to extreme, like a spinal cord injury, like when people break their neck and they have a spinal cord injury and they have quadriplegia or paraplegia, that's what's affected the spinal cord. So the cord is what, innervates everything, as it goes down through your body. So there was obviously no suggestion that he was going to, be a quadriplegic or a paraplegic or anything like that. But anytime you've got something pressing on your spinal cord, it's quite a significant injury and really quite concerning, in general. So what he's doing is he's having surgery to remove that disc and fuse the vertebrae. So once again, if you go to socials, watch that video. That video is exactly what he is having done, that surgery. So past examples in the NRL, we've got Mitch Barnett. He came back in 12 weeks. Chance Nickel-Klukstar, he came back in 13 weeks. Joey Leilua, 14 weeks. Look, it's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 months is what I say, kind of put a bit of a wide range on it. I've given 3 pretty successful examples there, guys, who came back pretty well, but there's been others that have gone out to, 5-ish months for whatever reason, because it is a complex injury. It's not, something straightforward where you just, going in and trimming meniscus out or something like that. It's fusion of the neck. It's a big deal. So, people asked when he heard it. From the interview, he actually first heard it in some internationals at the end of last year. So he just hit a pad in the warm up, and he felt his right arm go numb. So his right arm went numb. Thought nothing of it. Didn't really report anything to the team or anything like that. Then in the round 3 game, all that happened was he got pushed in the back. So people looking for this big mechanism, it's not there. He just got pushed in the back apparently after he passed the ball, and he had that same sensation. So probably pushed in the back, he had a little bit of whiplash, which has kind of irritated that bulge. He's then had that same sensation, so that numbness down the arm, and then his neck was really sore at recovery the next day. So it even went on to talk about he's been advised to avoid driving in a car in case he gets in a car accident, if that bulges back any further and those kind of things. So while we're not sitting here saying, he was about to become a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, it is a really, really lucky and good thing that they've caught it now, because look, it wasn't on the precipice of, necessarily making him paralyzed or anything like that, but it's certainly, that it's not out of the realm of possibility effectively. So, and that's a pretty scary thought. So great that they found it. In terms of my confidence in him returning later in the year, and I'll throw to you with a super coach spin on it too, but I flip between, this is just such a major injury. It's not, people have asked about Oluwapu. How does it compare? Oluwapu's was a congenital thing, so something he's had since birth that they had to correct. He also had, by what we understand, a disc replacement surgery as well, which is a little bit more extensive. So I don't think this is as bad as Oluwapu necessarily, but it still is a significant injury. So I flip between, you've got your Barnetts, your CNKs, your Joey Leiluas, who came back at around 12, 13, 14 weeks, which would have Kini back, round 16 to 20 kind of range. So it's not out of the realms that he's back, helping the Titans run into the finals if the Titans are there and abouts. But it's just such a significant injury that I don't think they're going to try and rush it. They're not going to risk it. So yeah, I'm going to sit really on the fence with this one. There are some that I take a really firm stance on, but I just think potentially you could have him back around, round 20-ish, but I could definitely see it, leaving into next year, because as we've seen, Oluwapu, an extreme case, but it can be kind of career-threatening, these kind of injuries as well. And there are some players like your Chris McQueens and these kind of guys who had this kind of surgery and were never the same again. I know Joey was another one, Joey Johns, who kind of said, and that those guys are at the later stages of their career. But with Kini, obviously, this is, it's got to hold up for another 10 years of footy, so pretty extensive. So throwing to you, mate, from a super coach perspective, I've had a lot of questions, and I can ask you this myself because I own Kini in 2 leagues. From a draft perspective, what would you suggest holding? Do you think it's just worth just writing him off? Where would you sit with that?
If I was a drafter, I'd probably move on, Brian. I think there's always options to come up in fullback for Supercoach purposes, and I guess there's, depending on how deep your league is, if you're in a 12 or above, it's sometimes a bit skinnier, but if you're in a 10 team, guaranteed you're going to have options to find a fullback who can plug a role for you there. And I think having someone like that in your team for a long-term hold like that, it's really, really difficult to navigate and manage, because injuries will pop up, things will happen. I would just sort of cut loose now and then just look at it in 8 or 9 weeks. And if you want to take the plunge and hold him for that long, then I think that's fair. But for the time being, I'd be looking elsewhere if it was me, especially at fullback. Be a different story if it was like a 6 or a 7, because those positions are so shallow with a guy with his sort of elite sort of talent. But fullback is very replaceable. So I'd probably look that way if it was me in a draft format, especially.
And how are you feeling about Kini in general from like a, neck career standpoint? I mean, I've kind of sat
Yeah.
on the fence a little bit there, but where do you sit with it?
Yeah, it's a big fence hit as well for me. You look at his age, he's only 20 and he's just like starting to, you see the talent there, you see what he's about. But, given that he's a smaller body as well, I just wonder if they're going to be pretty cautious with him. He's fearless as well, Brian. Like the way he plays, he plays like he's 2 meters tall. He just goes at the game. That's why everyone loves seeing him play and loves what he's about. And he's been so good for the Titans. But I think in a 20-year-old, you know, any sort of fusion surgery from a spine point of view is no joke. So I would be shocked if we see him before the end of the year. The Titans are the great unknown as well, whether they are finals bound or not finals bound. That might sort of dictate whether he does sort of gear up and come back. But I'd probably be surprised if he did, all things considered what we know now, because I guess, he may not even be due for surgery yet, or if that does happen, when does it happen? And then you fast forward, best case scenario from there, he's still, in the late teens, maybe around 20s. Do you want to be risking someone like that who, I don't really know what their plans are long term, the Titans as well. That's the other thing is like, what are their plans at the spine spots? It looks like it's Campbell at 7, Brimo at 6, and someone else at 1, like Kini. But, Carter Gordon's there. We've talked about him on the podcast recently. He was probably a fullback or 6 option, maybe. Then you got Jalen de Groot, who got a run on the weekend as well. So hard to know, mate. I really think that might be the determining factor is like what they sort of see in their top 30 with their salary cap, who's under contract, how do we manage this moving forward? So I'm pretty sure Kini got a 3-year deal last year, didn't he? So I think he's on the books for a while. So I'd be shocked if you see it, happen quickly. That's for sure. Like
Mate,
the
I've
age
got
thing
a
is
sorry,
mm,
you go.
no, you go. Like the age thing's in
Well,
his favor because he'll heal quickly, but it's also one you need to be cautious with too. So yeah, sorry.
no, I've just got this crazy suggestion. It's just popped in my head, mate.
Mm.
AJ Brimson, fullback. I believe, like I don't know if we've mentioned it on the podcast maybe once, twice, 20 billion times, but yeah, pretty good fullback, AJ Brimson, and I think Tom Weaver's pretty decent in the halves. Like he could come in. You've got Kieran Foran who could come back and play halves. So yeah, just throwing it out there as an option. AJ, like it's pretty wild. I'm sure no one suggested it before, but yeah, AJ Brimson could be
No.
a pretty good fullback, good
I wonder if
Queenslander.
he'd be like a rep level fullback, Ryan. Do you reckon he'd ever be a rep level fullback? He's got that in him, I think.
Oh mate,
From
just
from
get
my
him back
from my
there.
thoughts.
I love him. I love
Yeah, no,
AJ.
he's a weapon. He's the best, isn't he, AJ? We want to see him back in the 1 jersey, that's for sure. All right, we'll move on. Dolphins v Broncos. So I saw no injuries out of this game, Brian, because I was everywhere but paying a lot of attention to the subs going on and off the field. But out of this one, we've got Max Plath with an unknown injury and Kobe Hetherington with a hip by some report. I don't have anything further to sort of add to this. Any updates from your perspective?
Yeah, no, mate. I'm gonna flat bat this and put the call out once again for everyone to do a better job, and hopefully we get some more info on this kind of stuff because yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, Alex Johnston's a pretty good example where it's like we're 4 or 5 days down the track after a pretty nasty looking shoulder injury and we've heard nothing. Like, yeah, I just think, yeah, these guys once again, Friday night to now Sunday night, and there's been not much. And like Max Plass, he's a pretty, like, once again, a big deal to a lot of SuperCoach and fantasy people out there, but just a lot of fans too. There's heaps of Finns fans, mate. Like, one of the most popular teams in the comp. So just
Nationwide as
yeah,
well.
mate, they're
International,
everywhere.
yeah.
It's the Dolphins. So
It's the Dolphins.
they're worldwide. But yeah, no, need more information. Hop to it, everybody
All right.
involved in the game.
Dragon Storm's next. So we're going to list a few here, Brian. We've got a few to get through. So Jonah Pezet was actually coming back for the Storm via, I think, North Sydney Bears in New South Wales Cup, and he had a knee injury there that looked a little bit sketchy because he was, just returning back from his ACL injury previous year, hamstring strain on top of that as well. And then he had a non-contact knee injury just doing a Carmichael Hunt sidestep. So maybe an update about Jonah Pezet. And then we've got Harry Grant with a knee injury, Jaydn Su'a with a neck concern, Hamish Stewart with a facial fracture, and Moses Suli with cramps. Probably not much to add with Moses Suli there, Brian. That seems to be a bit of a repeat sort of story there with Moses Suli, doesn't it? Cramping seems to be a regular occurrence there for Moses.
Yeah, I just wanted to include that because I got a few questions on him. So just cramps. Hamish Stewart with the face injury, they were expecting a fracture. So that's usually like in that 3 to 6 week range. It looked like kind of cheekbone eye socket, which can be 3 to 4. So that's why I kind of put it at that lower end, somewhere 3 to 6. I want to give a shout out to Jaydn Su'a, mate. One of probably the better efforts I've seen. I was up at Mooloolaba Try today and then came down and had a family thing. So I didn't get a chance to post it. But so he, now you'll love this diagnosis, James, but pinched a nerve in his neck on Friday at Captain's Run. But yeah, effectively had, a neck injury that affected down into his arm, a bit like, once again, you could talk about it like a bit like Kini, right? Like had this neck pain that then affected his arm. Just to show you that I think anybody out there who listened to our talk about Kini and thinks, oh my God, if I get neck pain and it hurts my arm, like my spinal cord's cooked, like, can't like go. I want to make it clear that's very not the case. It's only extreme cases that end up like Kini, because here we have an example of Jaydn Su'a who had similar symptoms on Friday. They checked it all out. He was fine. But as anybody out there knows who has that kind of neck thing where you do effectively pinch something in your neck and it gives you some symptoms down into your arms, that can hang around and be really sore for a couple of days. He was like, nah, I want to play. And mate, the footage that I've got is of him, like he goes into a tackle, gets his head in the wrong spot and obviously aggravates it, like gets a burner, and you can see him like holding his arm. Mate, they run straight at him on the line and he makes this try-saving tackle, like just an absolute kill. And afterwards, he's like and I think it was either the last tackle or they dropped it, because then he's just sitting there while the Drags got the ball. He's like cradling his arm. I'm like, mate, that is a hell of an effort to, not only have the injury aggravated at training, want to play, then he goes out there, he aggravates it, and he just stays in the line, no care in the world, makes a try-saving tackle on the line. Like, massive shout-out, because that's a cracking effort. In terms of, like, moving forward, like, usually you can settle those down relatively quickly over the week, so hopefully you should be fine for next week, provided it's nothing structural that's popped up from the game. Harry Grant with the knee/ankle, it looked like that typical. So as he was going, he copped some contact, caused his knee to dip in. So that you're looking at like MCL at the knee, syndesmosis, high ankle injury at the ankle. He only got his knee strapped at the time, I believe. So look, I do caveat this by saying, and we've said this many times about syndesmosis and MCL injuries. For whatever reason, some guys can just kind of get through the game and then, it be quite significant to begin with. And Harry Grant is one of those guys who plays tough a lot of the time. And I know that's probably me being a little bit subjective, but like I do find that there's been a few occasions where Harry Grant kind of gets through a game and then we find out it's actually a bit more severe than he was probably letting on. So I'm certainly not. I own Harry in a couple of draft leagues. I'm a bit nervous at this point in time. I'm wanting the Storm to come out and give me some good news, which the Storm are, actually been not too bad with injury news this year. So hopefully they come out soon and give us some good news, because I'm definitely not sitting there thinking that Harry Grant's in the clear. Jonah Pezet with the knee, mate. I'll read exactly what Craig Bellamy said in the post-match presser. So Jonah Pezet played in the New South Wales Cup, and then obviously NRL was after that. And then Bellamy was asked about it. He said, they don't seem to think it's too bad. I'm not quite sure what position. I know it's on the outside of the knee, but I think it's only a jolt. Obviously, what he has been through, when you saw the pain, I'd imagine he would be fairly aware of it. So hopefully the medics are right and it's minor. Mate, the thing I'll say is that if he has thrown a Carmichael Hunt right foot step off his reconstructed ACL from 336 days ago, his first game back, if he's thrown that out, then felt like a sharp pain, you could see he felt a sharp pain because he lifted his knee up almost immediately and then limped around on it. If he has done that and it's only a jar or a jolt or something on the outside of the knee, like buy a million lotto tickets. Like, that is just I would be so stoked, because I even posted on Instagram, I think, and on Twitter about how good to see him back, because he had 336 days because he had the ACL and then he had a pretty significant hamstring injury as well. So always like seeing guys back out there. He's a really gun player who I enjoy watching. So I was really stoked to see him back out there. But yeah, if he gets away with not much here, that will be one of the biggest poo-poos against injury mechanism by video analysis, because it just screamed, everything about it screamed like another significant ACL knee injury, unfortunately. But with these, guys coming back, they can be a bit hyper aware of it. So hopefully he was just really hesitant on it and he just tweaked some scar tissue or something like that. I'm really just reaching and hoping that the medics are all correct. The one thing that I would say, and where this is an interesting one, James, and once again, we'll get into the nerd chat just very quickly, is that I've had patients, and I know there's been NRL players in the past too, who they've done their ACL for a second time, and particularly not long after they've had it reconstructed. And because that whole ligamentization, that changing of the graft to a ligament, all the nerves aren't, it's not your natural ligament in there, right? So I've had some people say that it doesn't feel the same the second time round as the first, because it's not, you don't have that significant pain as much, because you're not tearing a native part of your body. It's something that's in there and is still acclimatizing to your tissue. So that's just a bit of nerd chat. I'm not saying that has happened here or anything like that, but just interesting, with Craig Bellamy saying, surely he would know. I have seen some cases myself, and I know there's been cases in the NRL too where guys have done it and they've been Peter Wallace is a perfect example. He played for months without an ACL because he said he had a little click in his knee at training while he was rehabbing his ACL, and he didn't think anything of it. He just thought, no big deal. Turns out he'd ruptured his ACL. So, fingers crossed for Jonah Pezet, mate. But did it look as, I guess as bad to you as it did to me, purely from the mechanism?
Yeah, the video didn't look great. I think the only thing that's reaffirming, though, is when Bellamy says outside of the knee. That just to me is a little bit more prognostically better than someone that says, deep inside or front, inside part of my knee or something like that. Because, lateral aspect is probably prognostically a little bit better. But yeah, hard to know. I guess we've got to wait and see and keep our fingers crossed. We'll move on to the Cows versus the Durs up there in Townsville. So, no big ones out of this one, but Jason Taumalolo reported as something injury-wise. He went off early. I got no updates on this, Brien. Again, we're sort of shooting in the dark here, I think, again, aren't we?
Yeah, mate, I'll just repeat what I said before. Let's get some... Oh, look, the Cows are some of the worst, to be honest. They are Fort Knox up there, which, just blow... I don't know why. Unknown. We'll see what happens.
Sharks Bulldogs was the next one. Tom Hazelton ruled out pre-game with a back injury, and Kayal Iro has been reported as a hamstring injury out of this one. Brian's bad news for Kayal Iro rosterers, particularly in draft. He's pretty highly owned in draft, obviously, but standard he's only about 2%. He was looking like a real sneaky pod this year and probably almost a top 4 CT dub option, I reckon, when it's all said and done. He's looking the absolute business again. Jeez, he's been good.
Yeah, I think there was actually a few people who brought him in this week as a bit of a point of difference. Everyone was going Tuipolotu, that kind of thing, and a few people went down the Iru route. That hasn't worked out well, unfortunately. Yeah, look, he did look okay before he came off. So hopefully, I'm hoping it's a minor hamstring issue, and you're looking at that 2 to 4 week return to play. It's just a bit like Skelton, even if it's minor, it'd be rare to see him back next week. So 2 to 4 week return, so that would leave him, round 6, probably best case, I would be thinking. And then just worth mentioning with Tom Hazelton with his back, apparently he's doing really well, and they just wanted to hold him back 1 more week to be sure. So it's sounding like he's over the hump of that back injury, which is good.
Good news for the Sharkies. So Manly versus Para was the next one here. Tommy Talau ruled out pre-game with hamstring tightness. Jack Williams was reported as knee surgery during the week, I think, as well, Brian, wasn't he? So he was a pre-game rule out as well. Tom Trbojevic, big talking point again with a medial knee injury. And then Josh Alloway with an AC joint injury. We'll start with Josh Alloway, to start with, Brian, because we've got a few to cover here again for Manly.
Yeah, mate. So he came off and went back on after getting needled. Just once again wanted to mention that for anybody asking about him. So he'll just probably continue to get that needle up as most ACs do. Your boy Tommy Talau with the hamstring tightness, he's still at least 2 weeks away. So he was dealing with some hamstring issues from the preseason. Once again, here's, your classic hamstrings, right? And why we said that, the hamstring tightness with Tommy Turbo a couple of weeks ago wasn't, nothing either, because they keep calling Tommy Talau's hamstring tightness, yet he's still 2 weeks away. like he's still got another couple of weeks. So, hamstrings, they suck, man. There's been so many this week too. Like,
So many.
yeah, so many as well. So just lots of them happening. Jack Williams with the knee surgery. So I even saw him. So he's had the knee surgery, but he's already back on he was riding one of those electric bikes, which I know isn't that big a deal. But even the fact that he's not in a brace or anything like that says to me there's probably just a little meniscus cleanup or something like that. Heaps of people have asked, like, how did he get through the game? Why wasn't there an obvious mechanism? Meniscus injuries are one of those ones where they're more often than not that they don't have an obvious mechanism. It's often really innocuous. You'll often see me fall back on meniscus injury when I look at a mechanism and I go, I didn't really see much there to think it's anything significant, but they've come off, with a pretty significant issue. So, and then vice versa, you can have guys go down like a sack of spuds with not much happening, but you can also have guys who just feel like a bit of a click in the knee. They get through to the end of the game, their knee just feels a little bit unstable or a little bit sore. They go for a scan and there is a meniscus tear there. Someone like Braden Hamlin-Uele has a similar meniscus issue at the moment, and he's going to try and avoid surgery. So it's a bit of a complex, there's not one size fits all with meniscus injuries. Mate, if Kini was a talking point, Tommy Turbo, he's just right back up there again. We're talking about him again. Unfortunately, a contact knee MCL injury, unfortunately. What can you say? I mean, I can't believe he came into the game with his right knee strapped, and now he's got his left knee, he cops a blow to his left knee. Like, the hamstring injuries are just repeat, he is prone to those injuries. But this contact stuff is just, and we've said it time and time again, I cannot get over. You can't have a guy who's prone to contact injuries like that. It's part of the game, but oh boy, it really, really sucks for Turbo. I had a look at the mechanism. He kind of gets wrapped up around his legs right before the Ruben Garrick penalty goal, and it does look like someone falls on his leg and it dips in, so that would suggest MCL. The footage wasn't great, so I didn't post it on socials because they didn't have replay. It's hopefully not an ACL. They seem pretty confident it's not an ACL, and their hands-on tests will be really accurate. So you're probably looking at the fact that he felt a pop, and they also put him in a brace after, in the sheds after the game. The brace is there because they feel some instability, which is usually at least a grade 2 injury. So grade 2 injury, you're usually looking at least 3 to 4 weeks. I know Sieb said post-match 5 to 6 weeks, so it could absolutely be that as well. So at the moment, I'm thinking 3 to 6 weeks at this point in time is kind of where I'm sitting, and probably more at the 6 weekend than the 3 weekend. I just think from a SuperCoach perspective, he's definitely a drop. The only silver lining I could see is that hopefully this means he won't get picked for Origin this year, and you could potentially, pick him up over the Origin period. But I just think he's one of those players. He only has to come back and have 1 or 2 good games, and New South Wales will pick him. And so in terms of him, the concern for re-injury moving forward, it's very low for MCL injuries because it's usually a contact injury. So you have to be pretty unlucky, just cop contact at the wrong angle. So I'm not overly worried about re-injury with this particular thing, but you just add this to the hamstring tightness, and even I'm getting exhausted. I'm somebody who likes to go into bat for Tommy Turbo for everything outside of the hamstring issues. Here it's just getting a bit tiresome, unfortunately, for poor old Tommy. I'm sure it's doing his head in as well. I think I'll throw to you from a SuperCoach perspective. I mean, obviously he's a trade out, but what's it going to take? Would you be happy to kind of, roll the dice with him over the Origin period, or are you just off him now?
That's a really good question. It might just be one of those situations where you have a look at what sort of a run they've got, and if they can go on a bit of a tear. So I guess when you look at their buys, so they've got round 19, round 16, and round 9, I think is where their buys fall. So, the argument you make is do you go after round 19 into round 20? But then you're running into Melbourne, Bulldogs, Roosters, Canberra, West Tigers, Dolphins, Dragons, Warriors. So the back end of the season's probably not too bad. The round 16 bye, round 19 bye, they've got Tigers and Rabbitohs in between. That's not bad, but then you got byes in between it. There's not really an attractive time to sort of bring him back in, because even now coming up, they've got Storm, Sharks, Dragons, Panthers for the next few games, and then a bye. So, even bringing Lehigh Opawati in for that run, you're sort of like, oh, is it really that worth it?
Yeah.
Do you back the talent there? The talent looks really good with Lehigh, but the situation there doesn't look great, does it? So it's a good question about where you'd sort of bring him in, and would you do it through the origin period? They may well just pick him on the sting, even for New South Wales. And even it probably, I know we always bin this argument, but maybe that's a Manly discussion. It's maybe we just start picking him on the wing until it's finals time, and then we let him loose at fullback for the finals. I don't know. It's a real conundrum there for Manly at the moment. It just seems to be getting ever more complex, and there's just no end in sight. I think that's, like you said, that's
Mate,
the draining part
imagine
about
the
it.
amount
Hey,
of scar tissue. Imagine the amount, on everything at this point in time. It's just, I think it gives a lot of credence to every year we kind of bring up the argument of you start with Tommy Turbo, so it only
yeah,
costs you one trade to get rid of him. Because I think
Yep.
I've seen quite a few people even trade him out. I've had a few people in the comments under my post, they traded him out last week. Sorry,
trading back
and
in.
then trade him back in this week for the Eels game.
Jeez.
And they've used Anton Poser, I think, was the one who commented. He's a really good fella on
Yeah, loves the
Twitter.
Wales, yeah.
Yeah, loves the Waz. But yeah, I'm oh, fellas, just I think with Turbo, I think you have to either accept that you're going to kind of stick through that, with a 1 week injury, which it was last week. You kind of have to accept that you're even going to stick through it, or you're just going to trade him out and not look back for a while. I just think,
Yeah.
I think from here on out, you either start with Turbo and just kind of ride him until the wheels fall off, or you just trade him out and don't look there, because otherwise you're just going to burn trades in and out, because it's just the nature of the roller coaster of owning Tommy Turbo.
Yeah, big for drafters as well, who probably took him in the top 3, Brien.
Yeah.
For them, they're just scrambling, and it's panic stations there at the moment. You knew it, going into the season, but the reality's here, and it doesn't make it any better. Last game of the
How
round
good was
Tigers.
Nico
Yeah,
Hines?
sorry.
How good was Nico Hines' pick too? Just quietly.
Yeah, we'll pump him up. The sponge has the sauce, mate. Don't worry about that. Last one, sorry. Tigers Warriors. Justin Olam actually was a medical retirement. Good call, Brian, here on the run sheet. Yeah, so he was pre-game. That was announced. So he's been medically retired due to that knee issue that was picked up sort of late last year, I believe. Adam Dewey was pre-game with a groin injury, and then Samuel Afonu has been reported as a knee concern. Now, this one, I didn't see any update about Samuel Afonu here, Brian. On the casualty ward, there's indefinite, so we've got nothing to go off, I don't think.
Yeah, look, I do think there was a mention in the post-match presser it was a kneecap issue, and he did have, I thought it was an ankle issue from last week, so this is definite poo-poo on me in terms of but apparently he had a kneecap issue from last week, so maybe a little sublux potentially is what I'm thinking, because he came in today with his whole right knee, I think it was, wrapped, or he had a pull-up kind of compression thing on it, and the mechanism today was not much at all. It didn't look like he was just in a tackle, and it kind of his studs got caught in the turf a little bit, and maybe a little bit of lateral movement in the knee, and he went down grabbing it really, really tight. So whether there's a meniscus issue there, or he does have some instability at that kneecap. So, yeah, not looking good that he's had kind of 2 in 2 weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's facing some time out. Would obviously have to hear what the problem is before we're too accurate with it. Adam Dewey with the groin. Benji said post-game he was hoping to have him back next week. So it sounds like it was a minor issue. So especially for Adam Dewey owners / guys who are driving the Adam Dewey bus to 70 plus average for this year, in myself, hopefully he's back next week, because that was a bit of a killer for me in Supercoach. And yeah, just a shout out to Justin Olam, mate. Like he was one, and I'm sure everybody was kind of similar, where I was really hoping he could hang around and be like the primo signing for PNG when they come into the comp. Unfortunately now, you maybe Lachlan Lamb, do you go Alex Johnston, those kind of guys. But yeah, just shout out to Justin Olam, because I know that wouldn't be the way he wanted to go out, and we never like seeing players go out like that.
Yeah, here, Brian. I think nothing more to add there from my point of view. We're going to rip into the questions, Brian. So thank you again for everyone for getting these questions to the Brian online. So question one, Brian, we're going to sort of make tracks with this. Is it possible for Taniela Paseka to return in as little as 16 weeks post Achilles rupture surgery? Seems unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah, mate. I saw the thing of they said his recovery period of 16 to 20 weeks, but then they said he was aiming to return in round 25. And I think round 25 would be 5 months, which for round 25 from when it happened was effectively 22 weeks or something, which was 5 months. So I'm I think effectively the way I looked at it is the 16 to 20 week thing was just them maybe saying that was kind of his rehab period. And then maybe he had a 4 to 6 week period of back in team training, building things up, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's not going to return in 16 weeks. It just has never been done before. And for a big tall timber like him, I just can't see that happening. So 5 months is doable. We saw it done with Carl Lawton with the guys at Manly, for example. So it's 5 months is definitely achievable, but yeah, not 16 weeks.
Very good. Question number 2 is about Blake Moser, Brian. So he hasn't had surgery on his shoulder. It seems like recurrent sort of subluxation events there. What are the chances of re-injury for him for the rest of 2025 or until he gets surgery potentially?
Yeah, so he came back over the weekend, I think, in Cup, and I haven't heard any reports of, injury from that, which is good. So, obviously great that he got through his first game back, but yeah, the risk of re-injuries around 50% for the rest of the year. So it is still pretty high. It's an issue that he'll need surgery for at some point by the sounds of things, but they're just going to try and delay it to the off season. But yeah, he's probably about a 50% risk of re-aggravating it this season and then needing surgery. Zach Hosking was a really good example of that last year. He tried to play through, but yeah, needed surgery. So yeah, pretty high. Mate, as a Bronx, I'm not sure if you caught this. I made sure not to send this to the group chat because I was a little bit dirty. I wanted to see him leave, but he re-signed with the Bronx for 2 years during the week. So that's a big win because I think he's a really good prospect for you guys.
It's a very, very good get. The thought of him and Pakes together is just, oh my goodness. Give me some
What,
good thoughts there.
you're not liking Billy Walters off the bench, mate?
I believe he's off contract this year, Brian. He might be on the hunt. He might be getting headhunted by someone. I don't know. You short on a 9 at the Fins? You reckon they'll reach out for Billy? Don't know.
Mate, Jesus.
Don't know. It's a few nines kicking around the Broncos, that's for sure. It's a one, there's 4 of them in the top 30 there that could be playing NRL. So it just makes sense that someone's got to get moved on, doesn't it? I suppose to find some more guys on an edge, especially. We're pretty light on the old edges for the Bronx. Question number 3, Brian's about Egan Butcher. Was he due back in round 1? I think that was reported, but he hasn't come back yet. We haven't sort of seen any updates there for the Roosters and Egan Butcher, have we?
Yeah, so this is a really good question a really good question to answer because he's fine from the ACL. He actually has a bone stress injury that he's working back from. So obviously in his rehab, he was kind of, putting running load through his legs and he's developed a bone stress injury, whether that be in his feet, he might have a stress fracture, or he might have, even his shins potentially or something like that. So yeah, he's progressing through his rehab, but there's no real indication on his return as a lot of bone stress injuries are there. Look at Mitch Moses, for example, it can be 6 weeks, it can be 12 weeks. And we're not really sure when they picked that bone stress injury up because the Roosters, like many clubs, are a bit shady with that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll just wait and see with him, but not the ACL. This is a bone stress issue.
Separate thing. Question next about Latrell Mitchell, Brian. This is good. He's come back round 5, scheduled to come back round 5, but in round 6 they have to go to play Perth. They'll play in Perth. They're playing the Cowboys in Perth. Do you have any extra concerns there from return from injury, for travel, and whether he goal kicks or not?
Mate, I do a little bit, to be honest. I think it's a pretty long flight. If you ask me outside of the Latrell thing, what long flights and long travel increases the risk of most, it would be lower limb soft tissue injuries. And Latrell, obviously, his highest risk for re-injury is going to be his first 2 weeks back, which will be round 5 and round 6, more than likely. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who I think I said in the pod last week, I'd probably want to see it from him for a couple of weeks before I considered him from a super coach perspective. The Willie goal kick, there's no reason. If he's fit to play, he's fit to kick, particularly with a hammy. So I'm not really concerned there. But yeah, look, I don't think the fact they're traveling to Perth would sway me that much in terms of buying him or not buying him, but it definitely does have me a little bit more concerned. I've always been leaning towards not buying him straight away. That might change during the week if I just think all the other fullback options are dirt and I'm not going there. But I know we'll talk about it in Supercoach Corner. But mate, specifically the Perth travel, does that bring any extra concerns for you? Are you all sweet because the rig looks good?
I am very sweet because the rig does look good and the Wayne factor is good as well. But on the Perth travel thing, the one thing I'm probably more concerned about is the following week because they play on the Saturday in Perth and the Friday back in Sydney against the Bulldogs. And that's a bad matchup on a short turnaround with the big travel. So it's probably a factor, but I think the Bulldogs are just a tough matchup regardless. In saying that, though, I guess if there's one team or one player that can be streaky enough that's almost matchup proof, Latrell's pretty close to matchup proof, isn't he? When you think about like when that attack just clicks in and the combinations are there, they've been there for a long time. Like it's probably not as big a concern for me that they're coming back to play the Bulldogs there, but something to be mindful of. But as we've said many times, Brian, the rig's looking good. I don't know how you can go against it. I'm going to have to do the numbers here for bringing him in for Supercoach. We'll talk about him in the corner in a jiff. Ryan Pappenhausen, he wasn't kicking goals, but he was kicking off. So any reason why he couldn't kick goals next week? That's a good question.
Mate, this is like this has got to be a G up, right? Almost like on his podcast, Pap said like, "Oh yeah, wish he just came to me and said I'll take the T this week," and I went, "Yeah, okay, like why not?" Like just very flippant with I'm sure a lot of Supercoach and fantasy people out there are like pulling their hair out. But yeah, like if he's taking kickoffs. Like even with a lateral ankle sprain, there's not really much reason that he can't kick goals either. Like a lateral ankle sprain isn't really going to limit you all that much from kicking goals in general. So I expect him, at the very worst, to have the goal kicking back the week after next, because then Jerome Hughes will be back. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him taking the goal kicks next week, because if he's there's no real reason if he's playing that he can't goal kick. But yeah, I mean, if he's taking kickoffs, maybe you could argue he's in a little bit of pain, so it throws his accuracy off a little bit. But I don't think there's much evidence for that, mate. So.
It's a tough one for Supercoach purposes, isn't it? Because you're rolling dice on him getting a tee back, and Wishart hit 2 from 2. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be one to watch. Next one's about Reed Marnie, Brian. So there was no punishment about Reed Marnie for I think the couple of things he was cited for, and then not really a lot of news about Victor Radley's multiple HIAs. But do you think the game's doing enough to protect the head? That's the question in here from that's been submitted. So it's a bit of a broad one with Reed Marnie and Victor Radley sort of implicated in that question.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Like as a sidebar, and I know once again this is loading. Like I had a look, and like someone like Emre Gula is getting like 3 to 4 weeks for that crusher. And I realize it's due to loading, but I just think if there's a situation where something like Gula's, and don't get me wrong, once again, hate crush tackles, hate them, they're not nice, but like there's so many of these like in and around the head. It seems like it's been this year a little bit soft on head contact. Like we haven't really had, and I'm not calling for sin bins or send offs or anything like that, but there's been guys hit in the head pretty forcefully. And I thought the whole thing was, direct forceful contact, you're sitting in the bin, and it hasn't really been happening this year. So I would say overall, This year, I feel like it's dropped off a little bit, is my general feel for it at this point in time. So I can see the point to this question, I guess I would say.
Just wait for Magic Round, Brian. There'll be a sin bin binge again, which was farcical like a few years back. But geez, that was funny and a good G up. The next question is about why are there fewer injuries in wet weather games, Brian? There's a bit of data to support this, isn't there?
Yeah, really good data. Like I always bring up the point that the fields that have the highest injury rates are artificial turf. So turf that is really dry, it's really hard, it's really grippy, so it allows players to sprint really fast, change direction really quickly. There's a lot of force when players are playing on, a really dry track that's really grippy. And so that force has got to be absorbed by the body, and that results in, pretty nasty injuries. The good thing about wet weather, a lot of people see the slipping and sliding and all that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, if the game was played on a cow paddock with, big divots and all that kind of stuff, that wouldn't be good either. But these fields are pretty well put together. And so the give or the sliding actually has some, like, it absorbs some of the forces. Players can't run as fast. They can't change direction as quickly. So yeah, it does help with those kind of things. It doesn't help with things like hamstring injuries, for example, because your muscles have got to work harder to kind of push yourself through that wet turf. You got to work, your muscles got to work harder. So we've seen a lot of hammies this week, and that was one of our theories as to why the hamstring injuries were so prevalent early last year as well. There were so many wet weather games. So, but yeah, in terms of like your ACLs, MCLs, syndesmosis injuries, all that kind of stuff, it can actually be protective for those kind of things. So that tends to be the reason why.
Yeah, nice one, Brian. And we're going to keep the hamstring train going here because the next one's about are all hamstring tears the same? Because the mechanisms for Iro and To'o look like they were going into contact. So are they a little bit different to like a sprint tear mechanism, for example?
No, I think with both To'o and Iro, they suffered it while running and then went into contact. So the two common mechanisms are the sprint tears that they mention here, so while running and the hamstring goes, or stretch tears. So where, I think Latrell's had it a couple of times where, you get wishboned or you get forced into a position where there's a sudden stretch. And just of interest, if you have a stretch strain or a stretch tear, they tend to take longer to recover from than your sprint tests.
Last question, Brian. Are you looking, or this person's looking to sell Purdue to Jenkins, then Clark to bring in Kickout? Any thoughts on that as a super coach options?
Mate, I think Kickout's probably not going to be back to round 7 as my first port of call, but if he is back next week, I'll throw back to you as our super coach expert, and then we'll flow into SuperCoach Corner in a second. But my first question for you, for SuperCoach wise, what do you reckon? Do you reckon Kickout's worth bringing? Let's say his name next week. Would you bring him in? Doggy's, looking good. I think that left edge, Jacob Preston's gone over there and scored 100 and something. So that left edge is prime real estate by the sounds of things. Would you be keen on Kickout or looking elsewhere?
Pretty sure the Bulldogs have the round 6 bye, don't they? So that would be a definite no to any Bulldogs player for that reason. So round 5 they got the Knights, round 6 they got the bye, round 7 they got the Bunnies, and that's when they should all be back on deck. So I could hear an argument for maybe if you wanted to point a difference him up in round 7, all good. But before then, probably not, would be the way I'd approach that.
No, I agree, mate. So let's go. SuperCoach Corner, hit me with your score. You've absolutely rock and rolled me this week, which is fair enough because I had an absolute stinker of a week. Hit me with what you've done and what your plans are.
So this week, 1171, I captained Garrick and I VC'd Haas. If he was in the low hundreds, I would have looped him. I think the loop threshold's a lot lower, Brian. We talked about that last week on the pod, and I think if anyone hits 100 who's in your VC, hit the loop, don't look back. This week, very vanilla trades for me, Brian. This is way more boring than even missionary sex. We talk about that a little bit, but when you see who I traded out, you'll understand why this is so vanilla. I had to trade out Dave Fafita, Matt Burton, and Jack Goz, and I traded in Cam Munster, Payne Haas, and Tino. All highly owned people, but I just think they're all the must-have sort of players. So I just didn't make it more complicated than that. I just needed to get those 3 guys into my team, use the boost. They're just no-brainer guys to have in our team. So this week I'm making 3 trades, so you better believe I'm boosting again. The ones to bring in, so Jenkins from the Panthers, I think he's a playable guy in your 18, honestly. He's based really well. And at left centre, that's his spot, Brian. I don't know what was happening up at the Knights because at the Panthers and in their cup team, he's always pretty good and pretty solid. Went to the Knights, went MIA for whatever reason. Now I don't know what was going on there. And he's come back and he's just slotted straight back in. And at left centre, where he's playing on the week, he was really good there and really sound. And I think that's a position that they've identified as like a weakness because they've rotated through like those centre spots and those edge spots. So I think Panthers are sort of mindful about that. Toto's injured now for multiple weeks. I think you'll see Jenkins and probably Alamotti outside him, I would assume. And then, they're probably going to bring in one of the McLeans on the other side to partner up there. So I think Jenkins is a must-have. His break-even is -81, I think, Brien, as well. So you're hopeful to see some decent price rises. But I think he'll be a playable guy as well. So that's even another thing that's making him more appealing. I guess, who do you trade out? That's the big question here because, for everyone with their centre wing setups, everyone's got pretty good options to roll with. But Jenkins is probably more of a no-brainer. So you got Rob Toya, who's got a 26 break-even, Jesse Arthurs with a 64 break-even. I've got Selwyn Cobbo with a 94 break-even. But the thing about Selwyn is, Brien, he's got a good slate of matchups. So, do you hit it now? It's probably going to boil down to money in terms of what I can do with the money. So I will say that I have Tamale, Skelton, and Marju in my team as well, but I'm not trading them. I just see them as must-haves, as guys I don't really want to move. And I play this week in my flex Ruben Garrick as well. So I'm a bit over-saturated with centre wing. So I need to cull one or two. So it's hard to squeeze me in at present, but the ones I don't feel confident about starting each week would be Toya and Shibasaki. Weirdly, we talked about Shibasaki being on a tear and how well he scored, but if I had to sort of put the reserve on two, it'd be probably those two. So I'm thinking it might be Toya this week, but I think Cobbo's probably the more obvious one. But I just feel like Jesse Arthurs and Cobbo with the next few rounds that have got coming up, the Broncos, there's every chance they could be really good plays. And I think a lot of people will move Jesse Arthurs this week. They'll see the 60-ball break even and go, yeah, you know what, time to move on. But he's had very good scores, and even just this week gone, he scored 38 or 39, I think. So it's not a bad score for a centre wing. I think he had maybe one line break as part of that, but definitely not an absolute flop like he has had in the past. So I don't know if I'd be running to sort of necessarily trade those guys, but I think the Cobbo thing might be the one where I need to get some cash because I need to level up and get two fullbacks in. So here are the options, Brien. Let's run through them. So we've got Reece Walsh will be around about 600k. He's dropped heaps of coin. Paps and Drinky are both about 680k. Then you got Latrell Mitchell. He's less than 1% owned, but he's 866. So pricey. But the rig looks good, as we've said before. And the bunnies, when they're on, there's probably not much better. The other one who's a smoke is Lehigh Hopewadi. He's 580. It's just a tough run for Manly that makes him way less attractive. The other options I've got is move Kale Weeks to Jaden Campbell. The Raiders don't have a buy for ages, but fullbacks are usually good in Supercoach, and Kale Weeks has not been good. And I've given him a few weeks now. I could move him on there. The other options you could make is Katonga at second row forward for the Eels there. He got 80 at Para. He's pretty lowly priced. I think that's a good shout. AFB, Brien, we talked about him in the preseason, about how good he is. There's part of me is just God almighty, at 660, how can you go wrong with AFB? You're rolling in the dice on all these other guys, but if you just get AFB in there and just go big at front row, that's a really, really good thing. But I think the thing you need to be mindful of, I'm a non-Cleary owner, and I think there's a few people now that probably move Cleary on. I think you want to get him in round 6 or round 7, so you probably want to try and have a bit of cash up your sleeve to get a Starling or send on Smith to Nathan Cleary there. So I kind of think it'll be move Cobbo on, try to get as much coin as I can, get to two fullbacks, probably move Yongi as one person and maybe Toya, but I don't know. I don't know how that'll sort of shake out money-wise and see how we go there. I think moving Ruben Garrick's probably a good shout as well. I think we've seen big score out of him. His break-even next week is not too bad. I think he's only in the 20s. But if he scores sort of in the 60s again, I think you could probably move Garrick on at 820 to whoever you want. So I think Ruben Garrick will be one I see at centre wing that I'm there's probably as good a scoring options there, but the price is just I can do so much more with that money. So I think that's sort of my sort of midterm sort of plans there with a Ruben Garrick and sort of thinking about especially getting Nathan Cleary. I think Nathan Cleary is the one if he can just drop one more round of coin or maybe one or two more rounds of coin and then you bring him in, with Tom Starling topping out at about 500, you don't have to get too far to get into Nathan Cleary there. So for Nathan Cleary non-owners, just don't piss your money up the wall this week. Save it for 6 and 7 and have about 150 or 200 pretty neatly ready to go for those reasons there. So that's how we sort of shaped up, Ryan. So yeah, it could have been a little bit better because I got lucky with obviously not captaining Turbo because I moved him on the week before and I bought in some really vanilla guys, but probably worked out for the best because I think the Dragons dudes were pretty popular this week and they were probably a little bit of a letdown, Brian. Hey.
Yeah, mate. I think, look, I mean, it was a storm in the wet. They've got a really good run coming now. So, like you'd hope that someone like Gutho, I brought in Tuipolotu, I'd be hoping that they're going to repay the faith. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a bit disappointing this week. Mate, I scored 1083. I captained Tommy. Flitted between him. I'm sure a lot of people did this. Flitted between him and Terrell May today. Yeah, it cost me 800 points or whatever it was. This week, I brought in Tui Pilotu, Cam Munster, Jaden Campbell. Next week, I'm looking Turbo out for either Paps, Teddy, or Latrell. Like Latrell, probably not. I'm thinking more likely Paps and hoping that he gets the goal kicking. Like probably not going to be picked for Origin. I'm starting to look around the Origin. Like I know we're only round 5, but I'm starting to kind of keep that in the back of my mind. I definitely want like an Iongi, Arthur's, Toya. For Jenkins, maybe even Dewey if he's not named for next week. I might go Dewey down to Jenkins because I am I don't know if I can use a boost for the 3rd straight week, but I'm probably going to do it. And I just in my mind as you were talking, I'm like if I can go Dewey down to Jenkins and then like Iongi up to a gun, whether it be a Reece Walsh or a whoever, and then I'm running Ponga, Paps, and another fullback. I've got Munster and Jaden Campbell at 5'8". I managed to hang on to Cleary, move some things around. So I've got Cleary and Nico at halfback. That makes me kind of wet a little bit. So I'm thinking that might be
I think
the play.
Even Walsh at 600 is not far to get from Iongi as well. He's got a break even. I think it's about 74 or give or take. So you could wait a week, but I think the draw for the Broncos is pretty good. So, Reece, if he gets a bit of a dry track, like I think everyone's a bit off Reece Walsh as well, Brian. I think there's a few people that are down on him, but his involvements are pretty high. Like, the finishing touches haven't been on there yet, but I would put the money on Reece Walsh to come good. I think you can see the mentality is good there with Madge this year. It's looking good there for Reece Walsh. I think he's undervalued.
Mate, and I think I'm just looking through now, like the Bronx have obviously got a good draw coming up, which is tasty. I once again am hesitant to have too many Bronx, like having Shibasaki, Arthur's, and I got rid of Cobbo. That's how I got. That's how I held on to Cleary. Was I got rid of the Throbbo.
I'm struggling to quit him, mate. I'm struggling to quit him. He's dropped 90 grand on me, but I'm struggling to quit. I really am.
Oh, mate. So that's how I did it. But the other thing is I could there's so many good front rowers, as you said. So the other option is I just hang on to Yongi because I've got Emre Gula stinking up one of my front row spots. I'm like, do I do a Gula up to once again an AFB? Lindsay Smith's pretty cheap, but I think he's benefited from a few injuries. So I just want to throw out Rob Derby as a cheapie, or Rob Darby, sorry. I know Jenkins is there, but he's been pretty solid. I think we brought him up last week. He based nearly 38 to 40 last week.
Yeah,
now
it was about that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have as high a base this week, but he still scored 48-50 with a try. A few negative stats there, but that's pretty solid. So, and the Cows are looking a little bit better. They played better on the weekend. It's got me eyeing off Drinky as an option. I think the other thing though is that they've got the Panthers next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, Panthers next week, then into South, and then they've got the bye. But mate, if Drinky isn't coming into my side in round 8, I'll be shocked because they have the bye, and then they play the Titans, New Zealand, Panthers again, and Manly. But a goal kicking Drinky coming into the Origin period, I kind of really like that. So the only thing is that the other thing to keep in mind is a Rob Toya, for example. The Roosters cover all 3 big buys. So that's got me really interested in Teddy as well as an option. And they don't have a buy. I think it's still round 10. So, you've got them for a few weeks. So just worth keeping in mind with any of your Roosters guys, whether it be Toya, whether it be like a Watson, Connor Watson, any of those kind of guys. And then the other thing to keep in mind for all your trades, which I like to do, sort of look into next week, is that Tom can't and De Groot, Jalen De Groot, the fullback from the Titans, will both be on the bubble next week. So they'll be looking to so not obviously trading in this week, but then to next week. So a couple of good cheapy options likely there for you the week after as well. But yeah, I think, James, as you were talking through those fullback options, I reckon we're going to see Brien boosting again and going Turbo to someone, probably maybe even jumping off my boy Dewey. I won't jump off my boy Dewey if I have to. If I can trade one of the lesser price guys and then go Iongi up to, say, a Reece Walsh, that would be schmicko. Because what's the gap? The gap between Paps and Turbo will probably be like 150-ish. I don't think that'll...
I think like Paps will be about 680, I think, after this week.
And Turbo will probably be like
820,
830 or something like that. So
like that.
I don't think that'll be enough to get me from Iongi up to Walsh. So I reckon I might have to do Dewey. I don't want to jump off the Dewey train, but I'd like to get to a point I would just sleep easier.
Well, if you went Arthur's down, you get there. If you went Arthur's to Jenkins, that gives you what, like 290 nearly, like 280. You probably get there because Walsh is he'll be about 600. So he'll only be about, what is he tapping into now? He's
300.
Probably 300.
300.
You probably get there, to be honest. And that's why I think Reece Walsh is pretty attractive. The thing about Drinky with the Cowboys, his goal kicking, the floor's so safe. He was a bees away from like a bigger score when he just spilled his loads over the line. But I don't know if Penrith are a no-go anymore. Do you know what I mean?
True.
With like what they've been putting up defensively, on the edges, they've got new combinations. Like I know Nath was out last week. He'll be back this week and they'll be better. But I don't know. The Panthers are complete no-go. I think the biggest no-goes are the Bulldogs. I think they're probably the premier defensive matchup. I still think the Storm are probably thereabouts. But yeah, this year I think the Panthers are just finding their feet a little bit. And I think no To'o, that opens up, less experience there. They're still not going to be probably without Dylan Edwards, maybe. Like he'll be thereabouts. Cleary will be back. But I don't know. I look at, they're not playing at Penrith Park either. Like they're playing at CommBank this year, so they don't have that massive home ground advantage that you usually have out at Penrith. Whereas CommBank is generally more conducive to footy, the Cowboys run through Drinky. Like
100%.
all their attack goes through him. So I think him at 680, like a goal kicking fullback. Like I said last week, I don't know if I can quit it. And I was always really high on Drinky at the start of the year, and I just think, if I just need to put my money where my mouth is and stop following the crowd, I think Drinky's about 9% owned or 7% owned or something like that. I think I might go there with Walsh if I can, even though Latrell's looking good. It's just a tricky squeeze.
It's just 200 grand. 200 grand is a lot of money. It's a lot of money between like when you can go like a Walsh or a Drinky or a Paps or a Gutho for 200 grand less than Latrell or Teddy, for example, is the other one I looked at.
Yeah.
But Teddy's got a really high break even, I think, this week because he has a high score drop out of his thing. So yeah, I just think if I can get one of like those cheaper guys at 200 grand less, I might be going two of those. So I think two out of three of Walsh, Drinky, and Paps. If there's any Magic Sponge listeners out there who can provide me with some wonderful statistics or reasons, give me some like gut call things as to which two of those I should pick. I reckon that's going to be the way I go. The other thing I thought of, mate, which this might be a bit controversial to you as a Bronx fan, but mate, we might have Reece Walsh as super coaches over the Origin period because he might not get picked. It might be Callum Ponga. So you could get on Reece Walsh and then have him over Origin too. So that's another thing to think of. But yeah, guys, look, that's a wrap for this week. If you like the pod, give us a review, recommend to a friend. James, you won this week, both in Supercoach, the Bronx. I just bow down to your greatness this week, really, mate. Well done.
Thanks, mate. We'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah, we'll do, mate. And as always, up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.